Hi, this is Mr. West, and today we're doing a Khan Academy tutorial on combining like terms with distribution. For this, you kind of have to understand some basics of combining like terms before we begin. So I'll give a quick rundown of that. The main thing we need to know here is we have variables. Okay, so variables are an unknown quantity, and we can only combine variables with similar letters and similar powers. Let's give you a few examples before we just dive into this first question here. So if we had something like this, x plus 2x, this is an expression. This is an expression because it doesn't have an equal sign. Essentially what we're saying here is how many x's do we have in total that we are adding? So we have 1x there. It doesn't look like there's a 1, but there is an implied 1 in front of that x plus 2, and this equals 3x. Let's take a similar situation. Let's say x plus 3x, and then we have a y that we add in there. Well, how many x's do we have in total? This time we have 4 x's, and then we have y. There's a temptation among a lot of students that we would combine these to 4xy, but that is not the case. These are not like terms. So here we have an x. This is a y. They are two different things. They represent different unknown quantities. That'd be like saying we have 4 small bags of candy, and we don't know what size it is, but we know that all those candy bags have the same amount. And then we have another large bag of candy. We can't just then add those two and say we have 5 small and large candies, because that doesn't make any sense. We'd get a wrong number that way. Instead, we have to keep them separate. We have 4 small and 1 large, okay? And we keep them separate until we figure out what those quantities equal by finding out the values of the variables, which in some cases with like in expressions, you never do. And sometimes that's a little unsatisfactory, but that is how we start with learning expressions. So let's get back to the problem at hand. Here we have parentheses, and inside the parentheses we have 5h plus 2. Well, this is an unknown quantity, h, variable. This doesn't have a variable. These are not like terms. One way I like to denote that is either with a highlighter to highlight the variable. Whoops, it's a little dark. And then the constant. This is called a constant because it's just a number by itself. But we can't combine those either, okay? So there's nothing to do in those parentheses. So we always look next to see if there's anything being multiplied by the parentheses. In this case, there is. If there's a number being multiplied by the parentheses, we use the distributive property, and we're going to multiply both those terms inside by 4. Terms are these little parts of the expression that are separated by addition or subtraction. So essentially what we're doing here is we're going to do 4 times 5h. We're going to keep that plus sign exactly the same, okay? With distribution, we keep that sign exactly the same, and we do 4 times the 2. So we're going to 4 times 2, and we still have that plus 3 out in front we didn't forget about. Okay, so now we have 3. I'm just going to copy down, plus. Now, this is the part that we got to understand. If we're multiplying is a little bit different than combining like terms. You can do multiplication with coefficients. Coefficients are the numbers in front of the variables. So 4 times 5 is going to give us 20, and we have h. And this makes sense because if we have 5, let's say medium size bags of candy, and we multiply that by 4, we can do that. We can say we have 20 medium-sized bags of candy. That'd be okay. That's a legit move that we can do. And of course, we can do 4 times 2. That's just regular multiplication. In this case, it's with a constant, which we have, and that's 2. Okay, so we multiply that and we get 3 plus 20h plus 8. Now, we need to look for more like terms. Anytime you do this, you're going to find that there's more like terms. In this case, we have 2 constants, and we have a variable right there with a coefficient of 20. We're going to add the 2 constants together because that's what we can do. We leave the variable alone because there's nothing left to do, and we have 20h plus 11, and that's going to be our final answer. So we have 20h plus 11, final answer, and let's move on to the next question. Okay, 2 distributions here. So now that we understand kind of the process, I'm just going to go right away and multiply the numbers out in front of the parentheses and use distribution to multiply it by both terms on the inside. Okay, there's nothing to do inside this parenthesis, nothing to do inside this parenthesis. So we got 4 times 6 gives me 24r. Okay, I think we established that I'm just multiplying 4 times that coefficient, the number in front of the variable. And then I'm going to do 4 times 3, which is 12. So that was my first part. Okay, this green became that green right there, and then this yellow became that yellow after you multiply both those numbers by 4. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to do 2 times r is just 2r. Again, there's an implied 1 in front of a variable by itself because there's just one iteration of that variable. And then we have 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, so now I'm looking for like variables here, like terms. So in this case, we have 2 constants, that's 12 and 4. So I can add those 2 constants together, and I get 16. And then I have 2 variables here, and that's going to give me 26r. They're all positive, so I'm going to keep them positive, and I have 26r plus 16 as my answer. 26r plus 16, and I check it, and I'm good to go on the next one. Okay, so now I'm on to the next one. Okay, there's nothing to do inside the parentheses. I can't subtract by 7x, though, until I'm done with the distribution. Order of operations dictates that I have to do parentheses, multiplication, and then subtraction. So I'm going to distribute first, which is a process of multiplication, and I get 12x plus 8 minus 7x. So pretty simple there. And this time there's no other constants. 8's by itself, so that's going to stay. But I have variables here, 12x and then a minus 7x. And if I do that, 12x minus 7x, I get 5x, and I add that 8, and I'm done. So 5x plus 8 is my final answer, 5x plus 8. And it looks like I have one more question. My final question is a lot of distribution. Okay, so again, we're going to start with parentheses. Now, you'll see that there's 2 different ways to distribute. I forgot to mention that. There's this way. This is the way it's typically shown. And we have 9w plus 27 as a result. And then we could also have it like this, where the multiplication is second. And then I'm going to distribute kind of backwards here, but it's the same process. So 8 plus 8w. Again, it's all plus signs, so that makes it easier. I have a constant there and a constant there, so I add those 2 together, and I get 35. And then I have a variable here. Notice how I'm trying to designate that they're different types of like terms, with the different squiggly lines or lines underneath the terms. So I have 9 plus 8, and that gives me 17w. So 35 plus 17w. Usually it's the variable first. That's standard form, so 17w plus 35. 17w plus 35. And I'm all done. So hope you guys enjoyed that video. Hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions on it, please leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you next time right here on Wes Explains Best.